Cefalu, correct? Cefalu.
Cefalu.
And author of Ratsnakes, a book about being undercover, ATF, and all the shit that goes down with that. And before I'm going to go... No, I was going to say I'll let you introduce yourself. But I was going to say, I listen to a lot of audiobooks. This one was hilarious. It was interesting. It was thrilling. But it was hilarious. It's very... And comedy isn't necessarily a requirement for a good audiobook, but it strings you along a lot better. When it started, and I was like, all right. And then, it's like 2 minutes in, and you're like, who's this dumb motherfucker, this tall, handsome asshole? And I was like, all right, I feel it. And then, you're like, he comes up, and you're like, who's this faggot grabbing my balls? I was like, all right, not politically correct. This guy's my man. So I just wanted to say, it's fucking hilarious. The book will be in the description and in the top comment, Ratsnakes. I listened to it in one day. It's about a 7-hour Audible listen. It's worth it. I would listen to it. It's awesome. But before I keep going in, how about you introduce yourself, sir?
Wow, that was quite the introduction. I didn't know. I haven't heard a lot about the audiobook because, well, first of all, I don't know that much about the industry, so I don't know if audiobooks are a big deal or if a lot of people go for those nowadays or people prefer to have the book. But it was really weird when we were trying to decide who to get to read it. And they sent me a couple guys to practice, they did a sample read. And it just didn't feel like it was me.
Yeah.
And I went through that a few times, and finally I settled on one and said, you got to pick somebody.
Yeah.
So I didn't know. I've never heard the book. I've heard little excerpts that they sent me, but I've never heard how it flows or if it, captures the true story and all that.
I cannot believe you didn't read this. You didn't read it. Your voice is I say this to every guest I have on that writes an audio. One, you said you don't know about Audible. Audible is huge. I am 30 years old. I'm a grown-ass man, but I will not sit down and read a book. I cannot pay attention. But when it's on Audible, walk around, I can shit, shower, shave, go for a walk, go to the gym, do whatever, and I just have it playing. That's the only way I can't pay attention for 2 minutes, man. But if it's on Audible, I just listen throughout my day, and I take it all in. You have a perfect voice for it. I can't believe you grabbed the narrator.
Well, that came up.
You should have read it, man.
It was in conversation, but at the time, and I was in the middle of writing the book, editing it, going through all the legal hoops and everything. They needed it done. They needed it done in 10 days or something like that. And they said it would be 10 to 12 hours a day for 10 or 12 days straight, and I just couldn't do it. I just didn't have the time to sit down in a quiet room with a professional audio guy and do that. I would have preferred it. Would have been a lot more fun.
Dude, I think you should do it. This is what I always tell guests. Again, I tell them, I'm like, they always say, you got to do it right. You got to get a narrator. You got to hire someone. I tell every guest, I'm like, I will have you on my podcast, and I'll just leave the room, and I'll just let you read your book. You just read it for 12 hours. You have a great voice for it, man. It's awesome. I didn't know what your voice sounded like until the second you popped up on here, and I was like, oh, this is fucking perfect. But, yeah, man, it's...
Yeah, well, 30 years of Chesterfields and whiskey, and you too can have a voice like this.
Yeah, well, hey, I imagine I will one day if I can keep this podcast going. At some point, I'll have that voice, and I don't care. I think it's awesome, man. You got that voice. Alex Jones has that voice, just that gravelly voice. I wish I had it, but I don't. I'll have it
you went to University of Georgia, huh?
Yes, sir. I went.
Did Athens, I ever arrest you?
Actually, I was a fairly tame child there. I was a straight A student. I did steal a couple of mailboxes, and I never got arrested for that. So if anyone's listening to this in Georgia...
You know what? I'm thinking that wouldn't be like copping to a federal offense on a live stream podcast. Yeah. But I'm sure that was just a joke anyway.
It was a joke. Wink, wink. 9 years ago. But it was a joke. But living in Athens, Georgia, it was weird because just to start off, and if you can't tell this podcast, there's no routine, there's no topic, so we just go all over the place. Yeah, I remember you talking about the barber shop in the middle of Athens, and I was like, holy shit, I know exactly what you're talking about. Granted, this was years before I was there, 2011 to 2014, but I know exactly what you're talking about. I've sat in there so many times, so exhausted, but just gone in there and got my head shaved. I know it was just weird talking about. And then not only that, the guy that was the barber said an old black guy. When I was there, was a young white woman, but He said, yeah, you guys brought him in, and you're, in court, you're like, you're selling moonshine. And he was like, well, I didn't know it was illegal because everyone over there buys it from me. And everyone in the court kind of looked down.
That stuff you can't make up right there.
Oh, I know.
A classic city.
Yeah.
Probably the best job I ever had.
Yeah. It's my friends I had friends from Valdosta, and I also had friends from White County, and they lived with us in Athens, but they always used to bring moonshine. We'd have that on a game day. That shit gets you so fucked up you can't see straight by 11 in the morning. It was awesome.
Yeah, game days were not my favorite days when I was working police department.
I bet that was hell on earth.
Oh man, it was 14-hour days, all hands on deck. It was pretty brutal.
Yeah, you gotta, man, it's enough to just deal with the shitheads there already, because it's Friday, you've been studying all week, and it's like we're gonna go out and get hammered. Game days I had a friend that moved down from Boston to do a master's program there, and I remember his first game day. He was like, you think he was like it was like he was having a religious experience. He was looking around and he was like, the legends are true. I was like, fuck yeah, they are. But to get into the ATF, I will say, above all else, and I can honestly say it's very infrequently that a book does this to me, is your book. A book I always mention on this podcast is Raven Rock, and it's a book about nuclear bunkers from FDR through Obama. And living up here in Maryland, it kind of changed my perspective on how it's stuff that you would never guess there could be a nuclear bunker right there, and if the president is in town, they drop down. So I use that as an example to say that changed my perspective on just how I view the world. Every tower you see, is that a telephone tower or is that an emergency presidential relay? Listening to your book, that changed my the model I have in my head, which is all we have are models, but of the power structures in society. I had this very there are the people that go to work, they do their jobs, there's the government, the army, and the borders, and that's it. Listening to your book, it's like there's competing factions of unofficial power just under the surface. Bikers or gangbangers or drug runners or counterfeiters and that was crazy to me, is that there's a Game of Thrones going on just under the surface.
I've never heard it put that way. You should write a book. It was that was one of the things that drew me to ATF, was the dynamic nature where there's guns, there's drugs. Where there's drugs, there's guns. Where there's counterfeiting, there's guns. Where there's international espionage, there's guns. Yeah. So basically, an agent an active agent in the right place at the right time could virtually touch every aspect of criminal enforcement that you can think of. Everything from money laundering to human trafficking. So it was a very dynamic job. We focused on violent crime and firearms, but as you saw in my book, it can take you off course real quick. Yeah, there's no such thing as an average day during my time in the ATF. Yeah, and that's kind of what I got thinking. Is I've had on this podcast several times Dale Comstock, who was in Delta Force for 20 years. And, this guy's a patriot through and through and serves his country. But he also always kind of alludes to, yes, I serve my country and I love my country, but, I'd be lying through my teeth if I said it had nothing to do with the adrenaline rush of taking down a compound in the middle of the night. Listening to your book, it's this guy definitely, good God-fearing American who wants society to be safer. So I was there's a part of Mr. Cefalu that's this job is insane. This job is better than any drug, right? Putting on a wire and a gun and a bunch of agents in cash. Absolutely. Yeah. It was the most fun I've ever had with my clothes on. Well, in your book, actually, a lot of times, not all the agents had their clothes on. Well, no. but yeah, I would have done that job for free if I didn't have so many bills. I mean, come on, they gave me a gun and a badge and said, go forth and conquer. Yeah, really, yeah. Go, yeah. And sit behind a desk and push pencils? No, you're going to go into this bar and try to get initiated into this bike gang. Chicks showing their tits, guns going off, heroin and AKs everywhere.
And you get a paycheck.
Yep. No, it was a very rewarding career. The best part, being, as you can tell from the book, are the people I met.
Yeah, family.
Because I always said, I wasn't the best agent, best undercover around, but I knew the best.
Yeah.
I mean, I worked around them day in and day out.
Yeah.
It was pretty fun to watch them operate.
Yeah, and I was going to say, yeah. So I can't not avoid this. I have to hone in on this. So we were talking about how at any given time you can overlap with all aspects, right? Counterfeits, or that trunk full of claymores and bombs, right? To kidnapping, to, again, whatever, guns, drugs. But then there's that one, and it led to, what the hell is going on? Does this have something to do with the CIA? And to me, that made the hairs on my neck stand up. For everyone listening, I don't want to spoil the book, but for everyone listening, can you just give a brief recap of that? Because that was some movie shit.
Yeah, I had several of those.
Okay.
That kind of went to work thinking, I'm going after a suspected bomber or a suspected gun runner or something, and found myself in the middle of a government-wide, clandestine operation or something like that. And that was very bizarre. Because you don't want to believe it.
Yeah.
You get there and the information starts flowing and you're just scratching your head going, can't be true. Somebody's trying to embellish here. This just doesn't happen in real life. This is, like you said, too much like a movie.
Mm-hmm.
And then you start doing your due diligence. In fact, I don't even know that I don't think in the book I told the part of one of the stories where I know that I told the story where I had to meet the guys and they said, come alone, and that whole thing.
Yep.
Well, that turned out when I did meet the guys ultimately, and they gave me what their bona fides, which is when it started to come kind of unravel, and I was like, whoa, there's something. Anyway, they put me with a point of contact in Washington, D.C., in one of the federal agencies, one of the intelligence agencies, and said, call this number. And I called the number, and lo and behold, it was the person, the lieutenant colonel who replaced Oliver North.
Holy shit.
At the NSA.
Holy shit.
Yeah, well, that's kind of was my response.
Oh.
And, I did the due diligence. I had our liaison confirm who I was talking to in D.C. and that it was legit. And it was just creepy, talking in code.
Yeah.
He would validate that these guys I was talking to, he'd validate their credibility, but he would go no farther, wouldn't discuss, anything other than to validate if either of those people are telling you something, it is credible or whatever, however he said it at the time when I went. And he said, no, I've got to go now. And that was the end of the conversation. I was like, what have I gotten into?
Yeah, that's, you just saw something you weren't supposed to see, right? That's, that
trippy.
That made, it started to give me goosebumps. Because again, someone like me, just a 30-year-old who admittedly loves everything about conspiracies and intelligence and clandestine and black ops, and it's all, shadows. I mean, that's why I have guys on like you on my podcast, because I can't get enough of it. I geek out. But I'm also someone that wants that to be true. There's a part of me that wants it because I'm just so attracted to it. So I say all that to say this. It's weird when a no bullshit guy like you is putting this in his book, because it's so this, you're not like me. You don't want this to be true, but you had to put it in because process of elimination. It was, you get to a point where, like you said, your due diligence, the information starts surfacing, and you start going, there's smoke, and I know that guy has fire. Come on. At one point, does it connect? And Yeah, like I was there was some relief because I was like, the fact that I'm listening to this book that was written by Mr. Cefalu, that tells me that he wasn't killed by the CIA. But like in my mind, I was like, a guy like you, right? So you go up against all these badass guys, right? All these, all these violators, and you put them away. At what point, and this is as me, someone who's not married with no kids, at what point did it ever, I mean, specifically the like sort of the CIA thing, at what did you ever look at it and think like, do I just walk away from this? Just stop asking questions?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, in one occasion, I don't think I went into this in the book at all. There was another investigation, and it had to do with a large seagoing tugboat filled with arms, like militarized arms,
sure.
RPGs, machine guns, what have you. And it was going out of the country,
yeah,
which was sort of odd,
Yeah.
And long story short, when we got to the nuts and bolts of it, I showed up at work one day, and my boss said, "Bring me the file on the Aladdin." I think it was the name of the boat. And I brought him the official file. He goes, "No, I need your work file too." And I was like, just give me your work file, which contains all your field notes, little scraps of paper, informants, everything that you just don't normally put in an official government file.
Sure.
And so I brought it to him, and he said, "That'll be all. Move on to something else. This investigation's closed." And I said, well, you got to tell me more. He said, "I don't got to tell you nothing more. I'm the boss. But for your edification, we were asked to close the case." I said, "By whom?" He said, "The FBI." I said, "They can't answer." He said, "Well, the FBI was told to close the case." And I said, "Who told?" And he said, and that was the end of that conversation. And I was like, "Oh, you know what? Here, take it. I don't want it. Scratch my name off of everything. This was supposed to be a simple criminal investigation with some bad guys and some cool covert undercover surveillance. This is starting to get out of my comfort zone."
Yep. You're going to come home and there's going to have been...
But I was always wanting to know.
Yeah, sure.
You know, ultimately I did find out it was part of the Ollie North guns to the Contras. And
Jesus Christ in heaven, man. That's some...
Yeah, and it's not stuff you expect or even try to walk into.
No, absolutely not. You try to walk away from that. you try to... That's something where someone looks at you and says, just go home. And you go, okay. I'm just gonna go home, right? It's because if I'm you, I'm looking at that and I'm like, this is when people don't walk away from this. This is when there are gas leaks at your house, right? This is when there are a drunk driver hits your wife's car at 5 a.m, right? This is your mailbox gets blown up. This is okay. I feel better. I feel better hearing you say that. Like, yeah, I did walk away. I was like, okay, good. All right, good. But you, correct me if I'm wrong. You didn't mention that in your book, though. You didn't mention the. No. Is that on purpose?
No.
Okay.
It's just I was trying to stay focused and narrow the scope of the book. And
so when are you writing your second book about your brush-ins with international crime rings?
When I make some good money off my first book.
How about you should just write another book and just do like a couple chapters. Don't need to be a full blown out book. Just because the whole thing is sexy, but that is like some Hollywood sexy, right? Give me the notes, give me everything you don't need to know. Here's a phone, call this number in DC. Who is this? And it's like, dude, if you have those stories, and I don't know why I'm telling you this, you're my senior, you have the experience, but because I'm an arrogant asshole, I'm telling you, you need to get those stories out, man. You come on this podcast, get them out. It's not out of the realm of possibility. That's why I'm doing this podcast. Yeah.
I start selling enough books to where it makes it worth my while.
Yeah.
Because there ain't nothing, I don't do nothing for free.
Yeah.
I drink and I smoke for free.
Well, those are good. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, no. And by no means am I telling you to do it for free. But those are definitely leverage those stories. I mean, I've had on a lot of people that are authors. I can see who I can put them in touch with, because that's some real life. Those are some real life stories. And I'm not telling you to give them to me and I put them on my podcast. I'm not trying to.
No, I get you.
Yeah. But man.
Well, and what's interesting is with the complexion of the world today and the state of law enforcement and the politically correct, risk-averse leadership nowadays will probably not produce a lot of these stories in the future. I mean, there will always be go-getters. There will always be FBI agents, ATF agents out there, CIA operatives out there doing what they do as hard as they can do it, but not at the level and with the vigor. You know, we basically had a blank check and shit and get policy. That boss didn't want to see you in the office. You know, that's just a standard thing. You come in office, you better be doing paperwork, otherwise he'd be asking you, you know, who's going to turn themselves into you today? Why are you in the office? Bad guys are out there. And it's just changed a lot in the last 10 years or so, and it seems to be getting more and more restrictive and just harder, you know, with the bureaucracy to operate. Yeah.
Well, you have to fight back against that, because it's not just gonna get better. You know, it's not like when you have a rash or something, and it's like the rash can get better, by simply not touching it. Stop scratching it and it will go away. This isn't one of those things that goes away. This is why I go out of my way to kind of be an asshole on this podcast. That's why, you know, I don't say racial slurs, but I don't mind saying, you know, that guy's a faggot, or that guy's retarded, or, you know what, it's not okay to burn and loot cities. It's, you know, it's not, I don't like people shitting on America. Like, if you don't like this place, get the fuck out, you know? I don't care about political correctness. Hey, a bunch of Muslims took down the World Trade Center. That's a fact. Fuck off. So I say those things because if I don't say them, in my mind at least, and I'm a flawed human, I have my own cognitive dissonance, and I could be wrong, but I think it's just going to get harder and harder and harder to say them until it becomes impossible to say them. So that's why I kind of go out and say all of it now, is to sort of keep the tide at bay, if that makes sense.
Well, at this point, that's probably about all we can do.
Sure.
You know, this big argument, you know, I've got a lot of Border Patrol friends, immigration friends, you know. Those guys are tough, and they got a real tough job. And so when I hear people running them in the ground for doing their duty, which, by the way, keeps a lot of really bad people out of this country. You know, repeat offenders, recidivists, narco terrorists, and everything. It really chaps my ass that we can't say illegal Mexicans or illegal aliens coming across the border. You know, we would say the same thing of a bunch of 6-foot blonde Swedish Nordic downhill skiers were sneaking in from Canada. We'd say the damn illegal Swedes or whatever.
Yeah, it doesn't matter who the fuck they are. They're undocumented. No, they're fucking illegal. They get in they don't have to pay for shit when they get in car wrecks. They're leeching off the Social Security programs that your parents can't leech off of. And not only that, there's no fucking law and order down there. Those cartels run shit. So when people come over the border covered in drugs, unmarked weapons, or human trafficking, but we don't want to say anything because it's not politically correct. If that is our mindset, then you know what? We deserve to get taken over.
Yeah, but that's the problem is that's a bunch of people who sit in ivory towers and have, you know, armed security and you know, electrified fences around their mansions.
Yeah, and they don't give a fuck. They don't give a fuck, right? It's like those actors that say shit at like the Golden Globes and they give their anti-gun speech. Might as well.
You don't see anybody going out to the Hollywood fucking with those people. Nancy Pelosi lives in the shittiest city in the country, and I don't No pun intended. But I can say that because I'm from there.
Yeah.
I'm born and raised in San Francisco.
Yes, sir.
And the Democrats have destroyed that city.
Yeah.
It used to be the most beautiful, romantic city in the world.
Oh, yeah.
And now I wouldn't go in there for fear of catching hepatitis or whatever.
Absolutely.
But you know what? I'll bet you get within 6 square blocks of Nancy Pelosi's mansion, nothing.
I bet it's beautiful.
Pristine, beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. You're goddamn right. I mean, that's why
people like that can, are making judgments for the rest of us.
Yeah, well, it's limousine liberals, right? Do as I say, not as I do, right? It's my favorite thing is all those actors and actresses, right? They'll be out there on the red carpet being like, "Thank you for coming. This is just a beautiful night." And really, I mean, we need to get rid of guns. Meanwhile, if you look around them, you can see just off the corner, what do those guys have just underneath their suits? Full auto. You see the guys, they got the ACOG scopes on their M4s, and they're just looking around, and we need to get rid of our guns, right? That's what pisses me off. Is like, all right, you first. Right. Yeah, I don't have armed guards. I'd sure like them, but no, it's.
Well, that was a unique thing about working for ATF.
Yeah.
Ours is the only jurisdiction that is addressed in the U.S. Constitution. There's no constitutional amendment say you can't counterfeit, or you can counterfeit, or you can do this or can't do that. None of the FBI jurisdictions, none of the Secret Service, the DEA, no drugs are mentioned in the Constitution.
Yeah.
The firearms are.
Yeah.
And the right to bear them.
Yeah.
And so that puts us in a real tricky tightrope kind of situation.
Yeah.
Walking that line,
Yeah. No, it absolutely is because it's like, why are these guys thinking that they can come in and take our guns, right? And it definitely gets very tricky. And I'll admit, before I read your book, my mind was always, like, what is the point of the ATF? Why, it seems like they're just taking all the fun shit. But listening to your book, you definitely are like, oh, these are people that have gone to jail for murder for hire, right? These are people that are. And then you go, and like you said, and then someone gets away with a gun, and you're like, all right, whatever, someone slipped through. And then the next day, actual example, a mother killed in front of her kids on Thanksgiving with that gun. And it's like, okay, like, I get it now, right? Where the guy smoking meth, and he's got all the claymores in his trunk, or the other dude putting black powder and hand grenades while smoking a cigarette.
There's only, I could, sum it up by just saying, you either took an illegal gun from a legal person, or a legal gun from an illegal person.
Yeah.
Either the gun or the person was prohibited one way or the other. I've never taken a legal gun under the law or the Constitution from a legal person who is allowed lawfully to possess or own a firearm.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah, and I believe you. Listening to your book,
I literally took 100 plus firearms from the Hells Angels, and I guess what? I gave 100 firearms back to the freaking Hells Angels.
Yeah, you talked about that, and you're like, it's the least.
Wasn't my greatest moment, but it was law. You know.
Well, and that's what I love and respect about it. And love and respect about you is you're like, it wasn't my favorite thing, but you're like, God damn, I had to do it. And you're like, they knew my face now, and you're like, fuck, I'm not gonna go home. But this is all speculation now, but kind of, and also because I don't want to give away all the stories in your book, so go buy the book, you cheap assholes. Let's speculate now, because kind of back onto that sort of more, I guess, meta theme of these underlying factions of power, right? What do you think, what is going on right now with things where it seems like there are coordinated anarchist groups, something like Antifa or BLM, and they hide under the names of we're ending racism or we're ending fascism, but they're burning down cities, they're beating the shit out of people. Are there agencies? I mean, obviously you can't say anything because it would be OPSEC, but do you think that they have people inside of these groups?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And
I don't even, and I'm not disclosing any classified or sensitive information. You just have to have, first 1 year of criminal justice training to know that we're going to do everything we can to gather intel and infiltrate if they're committing crimes, which they are. They're not peaceful protesters.
No, you know what was a peaceful protest? Was a million people going to DC yesterday, and not one thing was burned or stolen, right? But
if I was on the job right now, I'd be inside those groups.
I think you need to go rogue. I think you need to join.
I would absolutely be inside those groups.
Because it's
try to find out where their funding's coming from.
Because they show up at random places, and as someone that does graphic design, they show up with all the matching signs. That seems a little eerie.
From out of state.
Out of nowhere, yeah.
I have a hard time coordinating with one of my friends, and we're all college educated, what bar to meet up at across state lines for a reunion or something. Yet these guys can get 1,000 people in the same city from different cities and states.
It is.
They got a hell of a logistics operation going.
There's no way that, and I mean, again, the Delta Force guys, Dale said, he's like, they have reaction times, they have response teams, they have food, they have hotels that they're all staying up. Like, come on, man.
And somebody's paying for that.
None of this shit's free.
Somebody's got to be paying for that.
Yeah.
And that, quite frankly, is subversive activity, if you ask me. Probably a violation of the Sedition Act.
Yeah, insurrection
and
treason.
There's enough jurisdictions we could go after them for criminal violations.
Absolutely.
Not for speaking their mind, but for criminal violations. Conspiracy to commit those crimes.
Yeah.
They don't just happen.
Yeah.
These people agree that at 9 o'clock, we're all going to meet up at 1st and Main Street or whatever their plan is, and that's conspiracy.
That's absolutely it.
If their intent is to loot and beat people and do harm. Yeah. But you've got to have somebody who's willing to stand up to it. And as you can see, a lot of the leaders, and I don't even care if it's a Democrat or a Republican, liberal or conservative problem, a lot of the leaders are caving to the social noise they make.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, if we let this continue, we're heading for a real hard time.
We absolutely
It's easier to get it under control or address it than it is. It's easier to keep up than catch up.
Yeah, it's easy.
Once we let this start becoming the norm, and then people are sick of it finally, and we get leaders with some balls who, follow their oath and decide they're going to protect the tax-paying citizens, then they're going to have a mess on their hands.
Yeah, you're right, because it's becoming the norm. It's easier to prevent than it is to, right? It's easier to just go for a jog every day and eat an apple than it is to have a heart attack and have to nurse yourself back to health. But that's what we're seeing right now, right?
That was kind of the I was just trying to think of a clever segue. I didn't have one to talk about my book.
Yeah, we can straight no, yeah. Anyway, back to Ratsnakes.
How about just every 3 minutes I'll just blur out Ratsnakes, cheating death by living a lie. I'll just in the middle of whatever we're talking about. I'll
just Tourette's. Be like, so I was going to the
Tourette's,
I was just going to the gym yesterday and Ratsnakes, fuck, Ratsnakes, unaudible, Gindle. Anyway, so I was I'll join you, man. I'll just start blurting. There it is, Ratsnakes.
There it is. That's what I like.
Yeah.
The visual.
There we go. We'll just put it right there for the rest of the pot now. But it'll be the thumbnail, it'll be the description, it will be the top comment, and I'll plug it. And like I said,
Dude, tell me you got like 1 million viewers.
Do I have 1 million viewers?
Yeah, that's what I want you to tell me.
Oh, I can tell you I have 1 million viewers. I'll lie to you. I have 1 million viewers.
There you go. That's all I want to hear.
It's growing slow and steady. I tell everyone this. Just watch. Just wait and watch. It'll. People kind of laugh at this, but hey, I was almost a failing student my freshman year of college, and then I woke up one day hung over my sophomore year, realized I was a fuck up, and decided I was going to be a doctor. I went to the library every day for the next 4 years, and I got into medical school. I'm going to make this the biggest podcast in the world. People kind of laugh at it. I'm like, all right, you'll see. I think it'll take about a decade. I think it'll take around 2030. It'll be the biggest podcast in the world. And, like always, people are going to make fun of me, then they're going to criticize it, then they're going to cheer me on, then they're going to congratulate me, and then they're going to ask me how I did it.
And then they're going to want to be on your show.
Yeah, and they can kiss my ass.
And then you're going to say, well, you know what? I awkwardly let you on 5 years ago, for free.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you know what? And I'm going to I remember my original guests. I'm going to be like, Cefalu was on here. He was in the first 250. You're going to have a free reign to come back on. But yeah, it's growing. And I've had one author on here several times, and he said he's noticed the biggest bump in his book sales. I can't guarantee that to anyone. Yeah.
I'm just curious. Do you ever have my partner Jay Dobbins on there?
He also blew the whistle, right, on Fast and Furious.
He wrote the book No Angel.
Yeah, I've tried to contact him, and I can't get in touch with him. Can you get it for me?
Email.
Please do. There are so many people that I try to get in touch with that I can't get a hold of them. That's the hardest thing. It's just, and I tell this to everybody, guests that come on my podcast and they have their book or they have their product. I tell them, I'm like, help me help you. You get me more guests, the podcast will get bigger and it will work out good for you as well. I'm fiercely loyal. I remember those who come on. But with Ratsnakes, fuck Ratsnakes, what is it? So the main thing, that one line of, what if they ask me to do something illegal? And he goes, it is your prerogative to get home to your wife and kids. Cash can be replaced. Guns can be found later. You can always go back the next day. But you are not replaceable. So you have to. So what if they hold a gun to my head and tell them to suck my dick? Well, sir, you better learn how to suck a dick. And
that's a true story.
I believe it. I know.
That's a true story. And Pat Kelly, you think I'm gruff? You think I'm to the point? No bullshit. Pat Kelly can make a grown man cry.
Well, tell him to come on, man. I'll have him on.
He can. He passed a couple years ago, but
goddamn.
Yeah, I met some real legends. Got to work beside some real legends.
Yeah. Yeah. I was laughing my ass off about that's when I emailed you. I was on the toilet and I laughed so hard I shit again. I thought I was finished shitting. In your book, you're talking about that instructor who was just being a cunt to y'all, right? He was acting like you didn't know anything. Do you guys know how this is done?
Yeah, no. He's a dick. Yeah, he was a dick.
Fuck that guy. And he goes, do you have any idea how airborne surveillance works? I believe it's with a fucking airplane. Dude, I laughed so goddamn hard at that. But yeah, so when you go for things like these biker gangs or these drug cartels or these human traffickers or explosives, I guess not experts, but thieves, traffickers, movers, do you have a sort of, and I don't know if you'd have to like disclose like your or the ATF's methods, but I'm looking at it from my mind, right? If I'm in your position, in my naive mind, I look at it, I'm like, there's a guy, he's got the gun, he's got the weed, take him down. What is the balance between, no, let's wait until we can, right? One of the SEAL Team 6 guys that was on Joe Rogan's podcast talked about it. He was like, we don't go for the leaves. We try to draw back to the roots and the branches and get the big guys, because then everything else falls. Do you do that with these like biker gangs? Or do you just pin the first stupid motherfucker you can get?
No, you always want to make sure you get the most bang for your buck.
Yeah.
If you go to the trouble and you make inroads into an organization, and you've got informants or you've got active undercovers going on, that's the perfect time to, get as deep as you can. And that's where it starts getting tricky, trying to negotiate with the bureaucrats, because, the longer exposure you have, the more threat there is.
Yeah. Being
compromised, dangerous situations that you can't get out of, harm to the undercover agents, burnout, all those things. But every case is different. Some you go in, they may be talking about, lucrative future deals and this, that, and the other, but by your assessment, they either can't produce, won't produce, or it'll take too long and be too expensive to get to that next level or get that next production line. And you collectively, sometimes the bosses tell you, I've rocked a couple of undercovers where we were weeks and weeks, maybe months into it, and moving along and just locking down defendants, indicting violators all along the way. And they just hit this arbitrary threshold. And the boss says, something else, time to move on.
Just got
and a lot of times legitimately, because the bikers, we talk a lot about the bikers, but bikers they didn't always impress me all that much as being the biggest threat to American communities. Yeah. But not to say they're not a threat, just say they're not the biggest threat out there. But you work in some bikers for a while, you get most of the patch members in a particular charter indicted on charges. Where's the point? Okay, so now you're going to move to the next state and go after another charter with now you're crossing over into other fields of it, the time, the expense, and what have you. So there's a legitimate point where you have to say, you know what, we've done what we can do. We're going to put a dent in them. We're going to ding them good. Let's just rip them now.
Yeah. And there's...
then other cases dictate you can't come out yet because of A, B, or C.
Yeah.
We know that they are intending to blow up, a government building.
Yeah.
And they're wanting to include you, but they're moving slow. We're just going to have to bite the bullet and keep going until we find out what they're going to do and where they're going to do it,
Yeah. And
usually the case dictates. A lot of times the agents, I never like being told, shut down a case.
Yeah.
Time to move on to something else.
Yeah.
We spend too much time or money on this particular case. But, that's part of the job.
Yeah. It's a lot of stuff that you can't force or put time limits on, right? It's very...
Yeah, for example, I was working the Atlanta Outlaws. They had 12 members in that chapter at the time. 12, I think. Anyway, so I indicted most of them and secured a warrant to seize and forfeit the clubhouse and all that. And there were still things to do. We still had other guys. But I was in Atlanta, and Southwest Atlanta was eat up with gangbangers and inner city crime.
Yeah.
And so here I am spending my time and resources on, 6 or 8 motorcycle riders over here who are slinging dope when they're shooting up Southwest Atlanta. So we had to adjust, and make a move that way.
Yeah. Recalibrate, re-engage. Yeah. And
Don't be using big words with me. Ratsnakes.
Ratsnakes. Fuck. Ratsnakes. I was trying to segue into that. Ratsnakes. It's I'm just gonna make that my new tick. Ratsnakes. Just right. But
can you hit pause while I go smoke a cigarette?
Yeah, I gotta go pee anyway.
All right. How do you do that?
Just walk away.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll do it afterwards. Yeah.
Ratsnakes.
Ratsnakes.
Yeah.
And Mr. Cefalu's out smoking a cig, smoking a stove. But I'm back here. I just pissed. Not that anybody's asking. But it's legitimately a good book, guys. I mean, I know I plug a lot of audiobooks on here, but Ratsnakes is a good one. It's informing, but it's funny. It's a lot like if you've ever read I Hope They Serve Beer in Hell by Tucker Max, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson. It's got that vibe to it. Very relaxed, very informal, very rated R. It's funny, as you guys can tell through this interview with Mr. Cefalu. Very down to earth. There's no idyllicism, no romanticism. It's real. And like he's talked about, dude, he's been involved in some real shit. I mean, neo-Nazis, KKK, full regalia with like 60-foot tall burning crosses. This dude's done crazy shit. A lot of guns at a lot of people's foreheads, shooting a gun out of their moving car into the water. Some dude throwing a pipe bomb out of the car, but not realizing the window was down or the window was up and it bounced off. Yeah, and he knows guys that were on the Waco raid, the Branch Davidians with David Koresh, and knows guys that died, and he knows guys that took their life after it because it affected them so negatively. It's but more than anything, as anyone knows that listens to this podcast, I love reading about all the agencies, and I'll admit I never knew anything about the ATF. I legitimately didn't. And after listening to this, it completely makes sense. It does. It's none of it is, I'll admit, before I read it, in my mind it was, it's alcohol, drugs, and spokes. You're taking away the fun shit. But no, it's a bunch of criminal fucks that are basically having their tools taken away from them, so they can't do more crime. And granted, that's a slippery slope, right? Government's here to protect you. We decide who's in trouble. So sure, I mean, I can get criticisms of it, but there are a lot of shitty people out there, and I do believe, from my limited knowledge, the people I've talked to on this podcast, that there's only so much you can do through blunt force and uniforms and squad cars, and at a certain point you have to go undercover.
Ratsnakes cheating death by living alive.
Ratsnakes cheating death by living alive. Ratsnakes. But Ratsnakes. But Ratsnakes. I'll have it tattooed on my chest. I was just talking about when you were gone. Said he's done some crazy shit, and I've completely forgot. Yeah, when you talked about, you're like, we were outside that like Klan rally, and you were like, it started to turn up, and you're right, and like all of a sudden these big 60-foot tall crosses come out. They're putting on their gay ass uniforms, their hoods and shit, and you're like, oh, this thing's gonna pop off, like, right? There are guys with guns, and it's right out of a movie, right?
Oh, dude, it was like any
American History
modern day action adventure movie. Yeah, it was a powder keg. There was probably 500 law enforcement officers assigned to that particular rally, in all capacities, and of course it was on private property, so they couldn't do shit overtly. So that's where we came in and were able to report on, introduce ourselves around. But yeah, it was a creepy. I grew up. I saw the FBI Story, the movie. Mm-hmm. Really good movie, by the way, a bunch of years ago, with Jimmy Stewart, and they had a episode or a part of it, an act about the Ku Klux Klan in the 30s or 40s, and I remember thinking how scary that would be and everything. So when I'm here in the 1980s, never having really seen too many representations of white supremacy or Klans or crazies like that, my first experience, it was a little unnerving.
A little hairy.
That there's that much hate
Yeah.
in the world
Yeah.
in a segment, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, oh shit, if they find out I'm Italian, or if they find out I'm a Catholic, I'm fucked, they're gonna kill me.
But really, I mean, I tell people all the time. So I went to the University of Georgia, but I did my first 2 years at Valdosta State University in Valdosta, Georgia. This was August 2009 to May 2011. I still tell stories. So I had lived in Atlanta outside of Atlanta. I went to school in Atlanta from 2001 till 2009, and then went to college in Valdosta. The amount of unfiltered racism there blew me away to the point where
absolutely
it is. And you mentioned
handbills and flyers around town, and
dude, it's
marching in the street.
Yeah, when I worked at a bar there, I got a job there my sophomore year. I was a doorman, right? Half the people are underage, but they were like, I remember the owner telling me, he was like, very, very simple rules, they gotta at least have a fake ID, right? Let them in. If their ID is that bad, then technically in Valdosta they had a rule where, unlike Athens, you could go in if you were 18. They'd put a big X on your hand with a neon armband, right? Couldn't drink, right? But they would go in. They were allowed to come in, and you had to have shoes on, right? So very simple, right? Got to have a fake ID. If they don't, got to mark them. You can't. They got to have shoes on. Oh, and number 4, no N-word. Excuse me? Yeah, just no.
You can say it, dude.
Oh no, I will get my channel taken off of YouTube.
Really?
I will. You can say just about anything else. But you mentioned it in your book, and I'm glad you told the story, because you were like, I'm not a racist, but this is what they said. I unfortunately, trying to get monetized, I can't say that. But full on NIGGERS, hard R, yeah, man, just none of them. And I was like, well, what am I supposed to say? Oh, just tell them I'm telling you the exact story. Just tell them they're out of dress code. But what if they're not out of dress code? Because Bubba can come in and...
Yeah, what if he's wearing the same thing as everybody else?
Or not even. What if he's just like a well-dressed cat, right? Cool cat coming in. He got his jeans, he's got his shirt. He's just going to try to get a lady. He's trying to get his fuck on, right? He's coming out. He's looking his Friday night best. What do I do then? Tell them that they're out of dress code and that they have to go change to this. Well, the reality is it's Friday night, right? You're 19, 20, whatever. You've already put your clothes on. You've pre-gamed. You went to a party. You guys got an Uber or a taxi or whatever. You're already down here. Come on, no one's going home. They're just going to the next door bar. And I was like, and what if they have followed every rule and they come in? Oh, well, you just let us know, and what we'll do, I swear to God, what we'll do is we'll just turn on like country music instead of hip hop, and we'll also turn the lights on a little more, because when the lights are off, a bunch of ugly fucks like me, right? We can dance with girls. When the lights are on, they see how hideous I am, and they're like, oh fuck. So that's why the lights are off in the bar, right? We'll just turn the lights up and we'll turn on. I just remember, so I didn't give a fuck. I didn't give a shit. I would just say, come on.
You know what the flip side of that coin is? They're a dying breed.
Yes.
I mean, I suspect it'll always be around in some segment.
Sure.
There are just some people who just can't coexist on the planet for whatever reason,
because they're
much
morons.
less race or whatever. But law enforcement over the years and decades has done a good job knocking their dicks in the dirt.
Fucking right.
I mean, they raise their head up, man. They're like whack-a-mole.
Yep.
They get too boisterous, like up the Aryan Nations or anything like that. They catch our attention. We usually throw a lot of resources at those knuckleheads.
Good, because that is some primitive shit that needs to be knocked back down in the dirt, and there are a lot of stories about that in Ratsnakes.
I always like working those guys. I always got Ratsnakes. I always got a lot of personal gratification, satisfaction when I could put charges on those guys.
Yeah. I mean, because they are, by their own definition, they're not trying to coexist.
Yeah.
And that is not what America is. But so with that though, let's play the devil's advocate. What is the line you have to walk when it's private property? And although horrific speech, free speech, what is the line you have to walk? I never once locked anyone up for anything they said. Okay.
I've been around some pretty heinous
shitty people.
Environments where things I can't repeat.
Sure.
have been said and done around me.
But the stories are told in full in Ratsnakes. Ratsnakes.
But, you have to lawfully be there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there's nothing says you have to be honest to lawfully be there. I mean, if I'm invited on to the premises or to the event or to the clubhouse, that's on them. Yeah. That's just like inviting a police officer in your house and they see your weed sitting on the table. Well, shame on you. You shouldn't have invited a cop in there.
Yeah, you dipshit,
So, and then there is a line. There are times we've done, everything we do is criminal investigation oriented. We're looking to perfect criminal charges against violators, uncover and identify violations, and then gather the necessary evidence to prosecute those charges in a court of law.
Sure.
Sometimes you get in there and it's not readily possible, and all you're doing is collecting names of assholes, names and license plates and home addresses and phone numbers of white supremacists or gangbangers or whatever. But there's no criminal violation present.
Sure.
And the courts have been pretty specific that we cannot go on a fishing trip. Like ATF, we have an intelligence division, a branch that, is sort of the clearinghouse. So if a guy comes across a Hell's Angel in New York that I busted in California 15 years earlier, it's obvious. We keep records and we gather intelligence. But we cannot solely go into an environment for the sole purpose of gathering information against unflattering groups or
because that's not probable cause.
Just because they're marching against, they want to burn flags or whatever. Unless there's a criminal violation there, we can't stay in that group until we find a criminal violation. To prosecute them on.
That's not how it works. Yeah, you can't.
So that's how you get your intelligence units under government scrutiny. You get them disbanded. Happened in San Francisco.
Yeah. And it's
because they were just they weren't focusing on criminals, they were focusing on militants.
Yeah. And the flip side of that, the inverse of that is the sort of kind of you have to respect your enemy. It's sort of the beautiful game in the purest sense of the object.
It is, but that's where Ratsnakes. That's where experience comes in, because there's been a ton of times I've been asked to go in and make inroads into a group for some other state, some other field division of my own. I'd fly out there and I'd make my best effort. But you get in there and you find out that they're a bunch of poop butts, a bunch of shit talkers. Wouldn't pull the trigger, wouldn't say shit if they had a mouthful. And you save time, energy, everything. If you bring that forward and say, look, we're wasting our time here.
You can't follow every...
Richard Butler and that whole bunch of knucklehead skinheads up the Aryan Nation in Coeur d'Alene. 99.999% yapping.
Sure, which you're allowed to talk shit.
You're allowed to do. You're allowed to walk around your property with a cool-looking AR-15 and
you can play G.I. Joe.
Militaristic shit and talk shit about other races and creeds and religions and all that until you come off the property and do something. The problem, this is where you were talking about that walking that fine line or whatever. If you read, or you should read, stories on the order, the Bruderschlagen that formed out of the Aryan Nations.
Okay.
David Matthews and that bunch. There was a bunch of hardcore guys that pulled together at the Aryan Nation and decided, hey, this collective group is a bunch of shit talkers. They're not going to do anything. They just talk a lot of shit.
Do action.
You know, and this group, you know, patterned itself off of the Turner Diaries. They're the ones who killed the Jewish talk show host. Can't remember his name. Alan Berg.
Okay.
They robbed an armored car. Michael Matthews was got burnt down in Whidbey Island in a big shootout with the FBI. Had body armor. They killed a couple of state troopers. So the point of that story is you've got to spend enough time to see if there's something smoldering
Inside.
within a group.
Yeah.
But once you decide there's not, I'm thirsty. Then it's time to cut and run, you know?
Yeah. And again, Ratsnakes. But you're right. You gotta, is this just a bunch of pussies talking shit? In which case, okay, let them go. And is there that?
And believe me, there's a lot of those out there.
But is there a core? Right?
Every bad guy I ever met, well, not every, a lot of the bad guys I've met, I'm going to get you Uzi.
Yeah.
I'm going to get you Uzi, man. You're going to have an Uzi tonight. You better have that money, man. I'm going to get you that Uzi.
Yeah.
And they show up, and I'm like, dude, this is not a Uzi. This is a knockoff of a Tech 22.
Yeah.
Not what I ordered, and I ain't giving you $1,000 for that.
Yeah. This isn't an Uzi. This is a stapler. Like, what are you trying to do? Yeah. And it does get, it gets, I was going to say, there is a badass part about that guy that he pulled some strings and got a U-2 spy plane to go look for that kidnapping.
True story.
I'd believe.
Hey, you gotta. Now, as a boss, I'm like, my head's exploding, and I'm having to deal with Washington, D.C. over your stupid shit. But in the back of my mind, I'm going, you know what? This guy had initiative. He thought he had something. He was going to be the hero for a day. He was going to catch the SLA or Patty Hearst and all this shit. And because of his contacts, he pulled the trigger. Well,
hey, man.
Maybe a little overzealous, but I'd rather have that guy than a guy who will never pull the trigger.
Yeah.
Had an opportunity to stop something or intervene or prevent something.
Yeah.
You know, I'd always err on the side of, you know what, take a shot.
Sure.
If it's legal, and within our policy or close to a policy somewhere, if it touches a policy somewhere, then try it and we'll beg forgiveness.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, again, you can hear all about that in Ratsnakes. But the guy pulled off, so there's a kidnapping, and I won't spoil it, but a guy managed to pull some strings and get a U-2 spy plane to go up there. And it was, you're right, it's better to have the initiative and tell him to tone it down, right? But I mean, shit, I'd rather have the guy that's like, we got a kidnapping, I'm going to find a U-2 spy plane.
Give me 10 guys like that. Give me 10 guys like that in the squad.
You can get some shit done.
We're gonna bang on some criminals.
Yeah.
There's going to be some people going to jail.
Yeah.
Because like you just said it perfectly. As a boss, it's going to be easier. I'll rein them in.
Bring it back in. Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah.
You know, I'll let them tug on me if I think they're getting too far out there for their own good or my good. But it's a lot harder when you got a group. And I've been in a couple of squads where their idea is getting to work at 10 in the morning, home by 2.
Yeah.
And didn't have as much the same enthusiasm for the job as some of us did.
Didn't have the fire.
They were lazy motherfuckers.
Absolutely, yeah.
They weren't rat snakes.
Yeah, no.
Cheating death by living a lie.
Cheating Death by Living a Lie by Vincent Cefalu. Available on Kindle and Audible, hardbook and paperback. You can get Audible. I did it on Audible.
And Kindle.
And Kindle. Get it on Audible, and you can leave a 5-star review, which I did this morning. But yes, you're right. It's better to, because it's better to have some pit bulls protecting your house and have to keep them on a chain than have, I don't know, a 15-year-old wiener dog, just,
Hey, easy. He's sitting right there.
Hey, all right, I'm sorry, buddy. I apologize.
It's easy, buddy. It's okay.
I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I
You think I'm lying?
No, I believe you. That would be awesome. Please have a wiener dog. Fuck yes. Fuck yes. Where is he? Oh my god.
What? He was talking about.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. Please forgive me, buddy. But okay, well, I'll put it. I was gonna mention I put down my dog in May. He was 17 and a half and a toy poodle.
How old?
17 and a half.
Oh wow.
And his back legs were paralyzed from the time when he turned 1. So he had a diaper for 16.
His whole life?
His 2 back legs didn't work, yeah.
For his whole life?
Yeah.
Wow.
Dude, he'd drag himself around inside. He had pecs and biceps because he was this big. But, dude, the dog talked so much shit. And because he was paralyzed, he couldn't fuck, so we never got him neutered. So he had figurative and metaphorical balls. Or no, sorry, figurative and literal balls. So he would, even when he couldn't see shit and couldn't hear shit, if he smelled another dog, dude, he'd fucking try to chase off deer. You'd take him to the boardwalk. He'd try to chase off police horses. Dude had some bite in him. But yeah.
Well, for a toy poodle.
For a toy poodle. He was insane. Yeah.
For a toy poodle.
For a toy poodle. Oh yeah, no, that motherfucker didn't care. He couldn't see shit, couldn't hear shit, barely stand, but yeah, he got, you know, I think his organs were failing, so I had to go put him down in May. And I went to the vet, and they were like, they tried to hold their hands out, like, give them to us, and I was like, what? And they're like, well, you can't come in because of COVID. And I just walked right by him, and I went in anyway. I was like, I don't give a shit. I was like, this is my fucking, he's 17 and a half. I remember holding Oscar in middle school with braces, watching on the news that we were invading Iraq. I was like, you're fucking high if you think I'm not walking in with this dog. And yeah, the vet walked out, and he looked at me. He didn't even say a word. He was like, how you doing, man? He didn't give a shit. And but yeah.
Yeah, that's the hardest thing I ever had to do.
Oh my god, it killed me, dude.
That's brutal.
I was crying like a little bitch. And I remember I emailed Dale, the Delta Force guy who trains dogs in Bali for the government, for like the cruise lines, right, to sniff out bombs and drugs. And here's Dale, just this, you know, Delta Force. He worked for the CIA. This dude's hard as fuck. And he's like modern day Rambo. And I emailed Dale. I was like, Dale, I'm so sad. I miss my dog. Thinking Dale's going to tell me to shut up, right? But Dale raises dogs. Dale goes, hey, man, I know the feel. It's tough. And I was like, thanks, Dale. Needed that. But yeah, so I was going to say Oscar, but I realized, I was like, let's choose Wiener Dog, not knowing there was a Wiener Dog off screen. So I'm sorry, buddy. But yeah, it's...
Yeah, I've divorced 2 wives. I've never divorced a dog.
Exactly. Be the person your dog thinks you are, right? That's a way to live life. Be the person your dog thinks that you are. Because your dog doesn't look at you and like knows all the shit you did. Dog looks at you and is just like, I love you. So be the person your dog thinks you are, right? Yeah. I heard another good quote right after I put Oscar down. And it was, and I was like, you know, do dogs go to heaven? And someone was like, dogs don't go to heaven. You know, animals don't have souls. But then I saw some priest goes, dogs do go to heaven. Because he goes, if you died and you got somewhere and all your friends and family were there, but your dog wasn't there, well, that's not heaven. And I was like, touche. If your dog's not there, it's not heaven.
Exactly. It wouldn't be heaven, would it?
Could be a very cool place. Not heaven.
It wouldn't be heaven.
Heaven, you go in there, you see your mom, your dad, your grandparents, and then you see your dog.
I'm going to steal that.
That's heaven. You don't need.
I might put that in Ratsnakes 2.
Ratsnakes 2, which comes after Ratsnakes, available on Audible, Kindle. But it's 3:13 now. Let's run this bitch till 3:30. Another 17 minutes.
Well, you better talk fast, and I've about said everything I got to say.
Well, you know what?
I'm getting about tired of this shit.
Well, you know what? That hurts.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry too. I'm sorry to you. I just have a lot. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry about it. I don't drink anymore, but I will drink my water. I'm gonna go to the bathroom again because I'm a bitch. Tell them where to buy Ratsnakes. Tell them.
Buy them anywhere books are sold. Amazon. Blah blah blah. Barnes and Noble. Go to www.ratsnakebook.com.
And we are back. Well, where'd he go? Oh, well, I guess he's gone. Well, it looks like we're back. 16 more minutes with me. I'm gonna try to... I got an idea. No, yeah. But really, go buy Ratsnakes. It's a fucking great... And as you can see, I thought he was a cool guy when I read the book. Now I know. He's a badass guy. He's a funny guy. But I want to get him to tell us more stories about the CIA. Because that's the real sexy stuff, right? That's what I want to find out. I'm going to try to work him. See if we can. Vince, are you there? Where'd he go? No, someone, not the wiener dog. Just me. But I mean, as you know, I go over a lot of audiobooks on here. It legitimately is a good book. It's legitimately, like, all kidding aside, it's good. If it wasn't a good book, I would have plugged it once, and that's it. But it's a good book. It's a funny book. It's a cool book, and it really is, right? It's kind of like it's that sort of Hollywood depiction that you don't think is real, but it is real, right? There's one story he told is like this armed guy was like approaching one of the cops, and they like didn't want to shoot him or something because he was like an informant, but they needed to get him to stop. So the cop just took his pants off and started jerking off, and the bad guy was like, "What the fuck?" And it was just enough time that they could like go tackle him and handcuff him. But hey, guess if you're on line of duty and you just gotta start jacking off, start spanking your ham, I guess that's what you gotta do. But so the story he told about the CIA is, they called him in to go meet him somewhere, and they called him into this it was like a strip mall, not a strip mall office. It was like an office park, and he goes into this office, and he said it looked like it was put together that morning. Some motivational framed pictures they grabbed from like Hobby Lobby or something. It was just slapped together. There was like a couple pieces of furniture there with the tags on, a lamp. It looked like a really like cheap movie set, is what he said. They slapped it together, and he goes, I don't think there was anyone in that building before we got there. I think as soon as we left, all that shit was thrown in a dumpster. It just made the hair on the back of my neck stand up, because I love to think about the CIA, love to imagine that it's right, this shadowy thing, but there they were, uncovering this massive acquisition of arms, as well as stocks and like drilling machines stateside. And they got a call from higher ups at the CIA to basically go home. This is above you. It was tied to like South Africa or something. All
right, man, make me famous.
All right, I'll make you famous.
But the strong close. Strong close.
Well,
you do know most of the podcasts or interviews I've done have been a little more structured than this.
Well, you know what? Good. That just means I stand out. Fuck them.
Exactly right. Fuck them, feed them fish.
Fuck them, feed them. Hey, man, there's another good quote. If you're in the creative industry and you're doing what everyone else is doing, you're doing it wrong. So good. Fuck all them. I'm doing it different. Good. If I did it the same, I would be insulted.
Yeah, if you're not doing it different, there's no reason for anybody to watch you.
Exactly.
Really.
Yeah.
Really, there's guys out there trying. A couple of my buddies have tried to do some podcasts and get them going. They're kind of canned.
Yeah, you gotta, okay, Mr. Cefalu, all right, from San Francisco, let's tell us about, fuck that, dude. You get on and you're just like, what's up, man? What's going on, right? Hey, Pa, I gotta go piss. And then it's just empty for 2 minutes. Come back in, zip up your pants, all right, let's do this. Because otherwise, you have to look at what's the reality of it. If I'm not offering something different, then if I'm offering the same thing as the shit you can see on TV, then why would you not watch the thing on TV with that?
Well, exactly. You get X amount of time, or you choose to watch. Like my kids watch certain podcasts. They're on the Kung Fu mixed martial arts.
Yeah.
They watch certain podcasts, whatever. You only get to pick one or two. You only got time in a day to watch one or two.
Yeah.
So you're going to pick the one that, suits your...
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's entertainment factor.
That's what got me, man. When I was pre-med and all I did was study and I only had a little bit of time each day to listen to something entertaining, I started listening to a brand new podcast called The Joe Rogan Experience. And I got hooked because I was like, who is this motherfucker? He just, right?
Dude, he's irreverent. That's what I love about him.
Exactly. And that's what I listened to him when it was brand new, and I was like, this is so different than the evening news.
Welcome. What I love about him is what ATF bosses hated about me.
Just just no fucks given. Completely respectful. He doesn't play by the, here's a tie and welcome to the nightly show. No, he's just like,
I mean, there's literally supervisors out there that use the justification they should get promoted up the chain, because I had to supervise Vincent Cefalu.
Right? Yeah.
I did my time.
Yeah, I did my time with Vince. Give me a
I've also had supervisors. There's no secrets. Everybody thinks there's secrets in the government. There are no secrets in the government. As soon as something happened across the country, everybody knows about it.
Yeah.
Or some version of it.
Yeah.
And more than one time, I was told that my head was on the chopping block to go from one squad to a different one, from major crimes to arson and explosives, or wherever. My supervisor was sick of me, and they couldn't get any volunteers to take me to the other squads.
Well,
I don't know that I'm bragging about that. I'm just stating
I think it's bragging, man. I love it when people tell me that they're unsubscribing because they're offended. I'm like, good. Go the fuck away. That's a badge of honor to me. If someone's like, I love it because I'm like, no, piss off.
You probably get a lot of chicks, right?
You'd think, right? You'd think.
That's right. I'm going to just go with that.
I'll just lie to you and tell you, yeah, man, I'm drowning in it, right?
Come on, man. You're a celebrity. You're a superstar.
Not yet. One day. Maybe. Hopefully. One day I will.
You know what? Do a snuff film.
Jesus Christ.
Kill somebody on air.
Just like...
Kill somebody on your podcast. I guarantee you will be the #1 viewed guy in the country.
That clip right there. That's going to be playing in the 60 Minutes piece in 5 years when there's a documentary. From podcaster to murderer. How did Tommy Kerrigan go from a clean cut? Well, it all started when I met Vince Cefalu. Author of Ratsnakes. Author of Ratsnakes. Buy it here on 60 Minutes. He killed a man live on... I mean, I've thought about that. What's that quote? The revolution will not be televised. Well, I've always thought, but maybe the resistance can be live streamed. I'll get the Delta Force guys, and if the government keeps overreaching...
You know what would be cool?
What's up?
Is if you have one of the Delta Force guys kill you.
Oh, fuck.
On your podcast.
That might be what takes
your mom and dad will be so rich. Dude, people will be buying up every one of your podcasts for millions.
Because once I die, I'm famous, right? That's how it always happens.
Yep. That's why I'm not selling as many books as I'd like. I'm still alive. I guarantee you, if at the end of my book I said, I got shot in the face and died, my book would be bestseller already.
Maybe we need to do a live podcast in person, and we'll do a gas leak. No, you'll bring on some claymores that you seized, and then we'll set them off.
Well, except for that'd be really, really illegal.
Well, it doesn't matter. We're going to be dead.
Yeah, well, no.
Right? Well, because the whole idea is to get the money, right? But what I was going to say was, I was going to segue that is to, move you around. I mean, they want you doing less shit. Well, let's talk about when that did happen at the end of your book, because you blew a whistle on the Fast and Furious, right? The Obama administration, scandal-free. No. There's the Fast and Furious scandal. And what did they do? They retaliated against you. They said, go sit at your desk. You're not going to have any duties.
Oh, dude, it wasn't just me. The main whistleblower, the Ground Zero, John Dodson, who was there, who testified before Congress, and they caved his head in. They shaved years off of his life. They made his life a living hell. Ultimately he prevailed just like I did, but it shouldn't have had to be that way.
And I've tried to reach out to him. I can't get in touch with him. I don't think he wants to do it.
Well, I asked him. I remember we had spoken or talked on the email or something, And he's not doing much of that right now because he's on the job.
Yeah.
He's not doing interviews or anything anymore because he's got about a year and a half to go.
Okay.
Before he retires, and he just they resolved their dispute regarding fucking with him and let him go about his business, be an ATF agent for the rest of his career, and he's got some protection in place, and he doesn't really want to poke the tiger.
Yeah, I get that, but at the same time, he should absolutely do the podcast.
But at the same time, you need somebody to like interview.
Exactly. At the same time, I need him to come on the podcast, right?
Well, I'll ship you an email with a couple of names and point of contacts, guys who might be interested.
Please do. I will absolutely have him on. And so I wanted to ask you a little more about those intelligence things, but I also don't want you to give away your stories for free. So I was going to say, let's sign off. Don't shut down Zoom. I'm going to stop recording. And then you are. Hey, you have my word, sir. You have my word. If I don't have it, hey, fucking. Well, then I guess fuck me.
Don't care. Okay. If I cared, I wouldn't be talking to you.
All right. Well, I'm gonna stop recording, and for everybody listening, Vincent Cefalu, buy his book Ratsnakes, and